So, Darcy, huh?
Yeah, huh?
Oh, man, you really should have shot your shot.
Yeah, these past episodes, I had figured I just had Yuri goggles on, and so I didn't say anything, but I had been noticing things like, that's funny. We go to get Darce at night, and it's not her room she's in, it's Eustace's. Oh, and we visit Darce's room, and the bed isn't even usable as a bed. It's covered in a stash of bottles and so on. No one could sleep on that. And is that just, are they just an item? Is that just what's going on
They're
here?
roommates.
And they were roommates.
And it's interesting that adds the dynamic of Eustace being like, oh, Hetty's going to be your trip minder now? The thing is about, and it also explains why Eustace doesn't want to share her notes from a lot of Darcy's visions.
Yep.
But the scene before this, going into it, Eustace definitely seemed like she was uncomfortable about something, but Darcy, for everything, did not seem to think she, like...
Yeah.
I don't know. Darcy either didn't pick up on it or genuinely didn't think that was what was going to... I wonder how aware Darcy is of how smoochy she gets while she's on her little trips.
Or maybe she usually doesn't. Maybe this is...
Yeah.
Maybe this is something new and unusual.
Either way, continually best girl.
Yep.
That's all I'm seeing.
Yeah, even more my favorite character now that she is a confirmed gay disaster also.
Yes. I think we can all be in agreement on that. Although again, Darce, consent. You gotta, I know you're in an altered state, but you gotta make sure you work that,
Oh, hello, Margaret. Eustace and I were just exploring.
Oh no! Darcy, no! Darcy, oh, that's even worse.
I noticed, although... Darcy, I don't want to alarm you, but your eyesight might be going. My what? That isn't Eustace.
Darcy squinted and peered at me. Suppose she finally saw through whatever distortion her tincture had caused, because she let go of my hands and took a step back. A sheepish grin crept over her face.
Oh ho ho, Hedwig, I am so sorry.
It's no trouble.
This is too funny.
Margaret reached into the barrel she had emerged from to scoop up a bundle of dried meats and hard biscuits. So, is this the snack? Is this the snack zone? I was wondering, because Margaret showed up down here. I'm like, okay, so that's either this is a secret. It's just a barrel she had emerged from. So, is it just a barrel you hang out into snack, or is it a barrel that hides a secret passage? When she stood back up, she must have seen my expression and assumed that I was mortified by what she carried, rather than the kiss she had interrupted.
I was hungry. Why'd you take the secret entrance? I would have just let you into the pantry if you'd asked. It's more fun this way.
Okay, so it is... the barrel hides a secret entrance to the pantry. Okay, it's not just a pantry full... It's just not just a barrel full of snacks you hang out in when you want a snack. Which... yeah, okay.
Anyway, you were clearly busy.
We weren't! I blurted this out far louder than I had intended.
Weren't what?
Busy! Not really.
What were we doing?
Well, Eustace had plans, so I stepped in to help Darcy with some of her, studies.
Mm-hmm. Any interesting discoveries? This one was no good. Or, well, I don't know. It wasn't bad, but it did make me think Hedwig was Eustace. does seem rather a large flaw. I find Eustace difficult to miss, what with the expensive spectacles and all.
And not only that, it made you think I was your mother, perhaps.
Hope not.
Hetty, no! Oh, this is going to be the chapter where we have to stop every few lines, huh?
Yep.
And a man.
No, I don't remember that. That doesn't mean much, to be fair. You forget a lot of what these things do to you. So it is just a thing that, like, everyone would have thought was normal if Darce had gotten away. And, and Hedwig was a little bit worried over nothing. Other than the falling and dying bit, that was worth worrying over. Oh, what is with my throat today? Sorry, y'all.
But only from the sense that Darcy would have gotten injured, not from the sense that Darcy would have attempted it in the first place.
Yep. I mean, Darcy, in fact, attempted and succeeded to fall off the balcony.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
You forget a lot of what these things do to you. Doesn't Eustace typically write it all down? Well, yes.
Oh, well, you must have thought I was a man just now. Why else would you try that? Margaret and Darcy exchanged an infuriatingly knowing glance.
And here I was thinking I was witnessing a cover story unfolding.
What?
I definitely thought you were Eustace for the past, I don't know, at least 10 minutes. I was having a wonderful dream, frankly, but I'm sorry for dragging you into it.
A dream where you... with Eustace? I couldn't verbalize it. The pair of them looked at me with a mixture of concern and amusement.
I hate that sort of dream. The kind where it's just a normal day, and then you have to do it all over again when you wake up.
Boom, got him.
Well, like I was telling you, me and Eustace are in an odd spot at the moment, so it was nice.
I was beginning to worry that I was dreaming. If you'll excuse me. I wobbled away on unsteady legs, leaving Margaret and Darcy to talk about whatever it was they were going to talk about. I rubbed my mouth where Darcy's lips had pressed against me as I wandered back through the cellar toward the stairs. I could still feel the shape of her mouth, could trace the warm oblong shape with it with my finger on my skin. It gave me the shivers, a similar sensation to rubbing a charcoal pencil the wrong way. Mother Superior, I think I've caught the gay. What do I do? What do I do? Hedwig's Reddit post. Hello, I accidentally made out with a woman and now I think I might have been gay. I haven't stopped thinking about it for the past 72 hours and my Mother Superior is really angry.
It hasn't worn off yet.
It hasn't worn off yet. When will I go back to normal? Thank you. I wandered through the cloister for a while, eventually wrenching my hand away from my face to try and appear at ease with myself, even though I was beginning to feel slightly ill. Had I exited my cell into the streets of Sodom? I walked laps around the cloister, fretting all the way. The walls became less and less familiar each time I passed them again. Tears began to well up in my eyelids, although they did not flow freely. They soaked my skin subtly, stinging the corners of my eyes and the little divots by my nostrils. I doubt anyone would have guessed I had been weeping unless they had caught my face in exactly the right light. But when I licked my lips, I could taste salt. After countless rotations around the cloister, I took a new turn and broke toward the outer wall, along the path where I had met Catherine with a K some nights ago. Catherine with a K! I sighed and considered all things in perspective. Her sin, I supposed, was at least far beyond Darcy's honest mistake. As honest as one could be under the influence of one of her potions, at any rate. My shock was beginning to give way to simple sourness. I held Darcy in high esteem for her works and visions, but the luster of the latter was beginning to dull. If one vision required 10 bizarre random experiences like the one I had just followed her through, could it really be so holy? Moreover, I was beginning to feel embarrassed by my strong feelings. How could I care about this when I knew that there was a true monster inhabiting the Abbey? A real ghost, a real devil. How could we possibly be having a day off? We should have been preparing an exorcism, not running around planting our lips on each other by mistake.
Oh, goodness gracious. You look just like I do after I've had an accidental makeout session.
I did like, though, the interesting thing with her perspective there, like, oh, well, it was an honest mistake, so that's way less than Catherine's sin, even though this is gay and therefore like sodomy and stuff.
Has she thought through Has she thought through the part where Darcy thought it was Eustace? Yes.
I mean, clearly, seeing as she talked about that earlier.
Oh,
but
that's true.
I was reading about Benedetta Carlini earlier.
Tell me about who this is.
A famous Italian nun who was, among other things, having a gay affair with another nun and so on.
Worm.
With, sordid details like claiming to be possessed by an angel named Splenditello while doing the do. And so therefore it was fine.
Oh, okay, yeah. Totally. Totes my goats.
Also, like, had fraudulent stigmata, claims to have mystic visions and so on, and got investigated by the church and held accountable. But
this person sounds great.
Yeah, there's a movie about her that I really want to see now that I've learned about her. But the thing I found interesting was that this is very much like fucking get burnt at the stake material. And they didn't do that. She got sentenced to life imprisonment and lived out the rest of her life, and even in terms that still let her attend mass and so on, because it was thought that, well, yes, all these awful things and all these violations, but clearly this all happened while she was completely out of her wits at the devil's influence. There's no other way that someone could do all this, and therefore we can't hold her fully responsible.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we gotta have some judgments. We gotta, hold her responsible for what she did, but at the same time, like,
it was clearly the devil's influence. We can't.
Yeah, you can't lock someone up because of the devil's acts. You can only lock them up because of their own acts.
It's it's a weird line to draw, but it's weirdly consistent, I guess.
Yeah, and I kind of got a little flavor of that here, where it's like, oh, here's a probably more severe sin in one sense, but also in another sense, like, oh, well, it was an honest mistake on Darcy's part, so therefore it's different than Catherine's sin. We won't hold it to that same standard.
It also makes me consider a bit more some of the key art for this chapter. I don't know if you've seen a lot of it, but some of the key art that the one we used in the thumbnail for the series, where Hedwig looks like being surrounded by people with torches and stuff, and actually being put to the stake.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, or evidently so. So I do kind of wonder if that thematically will wind up mattering. Anyway,
sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all right. I can't wait to monologue for a bit.
Man, you look terrible. As if you just saw a ghost.
I hadn't noticed Eustace walking along the path toward me, still carrying her fishing implements. I snapped to attention so fast that I could see her flinch. Perhaps I have.
Steady on. I was only joking. What's gotten into you?
Oh, nothing. It's, complicated. I suppose it's my turn to be unduly stressed by all that's happened lately. I thought you were heading out to fish.
I was going to, but I thought perhaps I should come back. Something felt, wrong about leaving when I did. Looks like I may have been right.
Perhaps.
What are you up to?
Oh, I don't know. I was looking after Darcy, but that's no longer necessary, thank goodness. I was just taking a walk to, settle down.
She can be a handful, if you know what I mean. I mean, have you seen those melons? God damn. How is she?
She seems well.
Occupied?
I would guess so, yes. Margaret wanted to talk to her about something.
Oh, I see. Suppose I have time to fish after all, then. Want to come along?
I don't know the first thing about fishing.
It mostly involves sitting still.
I suppose I could do that, yes.
Okay, so Eustace is like, oh, she's talking to Margaret? Okay, so it'll be a while then. What does that mean? What does that mean? It seems like Margaret, not Margaret, Eustace understands that to mean something that Darcy will be occupied for the foreseeable future.
Interesting. Selfishly, I imagine that spending some time away from the Abbey itself might put me in ever so slightly less danger. There was no real logic to it, of course, but I held a spurious connection in mind between the demon and the walls at the Abbey itself.
Wonderful. Fishing minigame.
Fishing minigame.
Fishing minigame? The walk to Eustace's fishing spot wasn't too long, but it did take us away from the road onto a barely beaten trail into the woods. The path sloped downward, and was occasionally interrupted by fallen branches and logs that required some effort to maneuver over or around. We did not speak for a while. I welcomed the silence, truth be told. It allowed me to absorb the sounds of the forest. I realized halfway into the journey that I was hearing more new sounds in rapid succession than I had ever before in my life. There are only so many sounds within stone walls. Here in the forest, there were creaks, cracks, thuds, groans, and sharp bird song. It was somewhat overwhelming. As I hopped over a fallen log blocking the way behind Eustace, I experienced an odd sensation.
Hedwig touches grass for the first time. Like the metaphorical touch grass, not the literal touching of grass, but like the metaphorical touching of grass.
My hands digging into the bark as I adjusted my weight to swing my leg awkwardly over to the other side felt as if they could feel more. I cannot think of a better way to describe it. I know it sounds rather ridiculous, but hearing all of the sounds of the mysterious outdoors, running the rough texture of wood under my fingers, fabric bunching up between my legs as I shifted my weight, it was all too much for my soul to bear at once. I felt my eyes flicker upward, and I felt so dizzy that my dismount from the log nearly ended with me face down in the dirt.
Are you all right back there?
Yes, I don't know. I went a bit funny there for a moment.
You look a little off balance. Do you need to eat something?
Goodness, no. Luncheon was more than enough for me earlier. I think I'm just having a lot of thoughts about being, outside.
You have been outside a few times now.
The woods are a new place. There's a lot of noise and lots of new things. I just got distracted.
That makes sense.
She turned to continue down the trail, but kept talking as she forged ahead.
You had me worried there. Remind me of Charity a bit.
Oh?
I shouldn't divulge. It's not my business, but she's got a condition.
Oh no! Does Moira know?
Yes, it doesn't really matter, though. Not much that can be done about it.
I've never noticed anything amiss with Charity.
Is she epileptic or something?
If she have what?
Is she epileptic or something?
Maybe. Let's see. What was it that... Her getting dizzy, a little lack of control, maybe? Maybe that's something like that.
You haven't heard her going out to use the latrine 4 times a night?
Oh, different sort of condition then, I suppose.
I suppose I'm a sound sleeper.
Are you, though?
I could hear a new sound as we continued onward. Like my old faucet, but somehow wider, deeper. Like the ocean, but calmer and lighter.
It's so weird that she knows what the ocean is like, but not what a river is like.
Yeah?
That's so... The circumstances to bring that about are so specific.
Here we are.
We had emerged from the tree line onto a grassy embankment. The knee of a modest stream bent in front of us. Eustace put her bucket down and immediately set to work erecting a contraption out of the pole and stick she was carrying.
Well, sit down anywhere.
Would you like some help?
Fishing spot, Eustace's secret.
No. This is just for me.
Very well.
I also appreciate Eustace has firm boundaries. Sometimes it causes her to be a bit prickly, but, you know, she knows where her boundaries are, at least.
Yep.
Nope, fishing is my gig. You just get to watch.
I glanced beneath me to try and find a good seat, but nothing stuck out in particular. It was all dirt and grass.
Just sit. Your bum's gonna get soggy no matter what out here.
I gingerly sat down. My habit was thick enough that it was surprisingly comfortable. Damp, but not sodden. The cold ground gave me a jolt when I first touched down, but after a few minutes I was pleasantly situated. I was suddenly revulsed, however, when I saw what Eustace's bucket had been carrying. Ah!
What? They're just worms.
Whatever for? She reached into the bucket as if it were nothing and swiftly plucked one worm out from the horrid tangle.
Bait.
She expertly speared the creature onto the sharp hook dangling from her fishing pole. My reactions were all over the place today. I despised looking at the pulsating creatures, but I did not want to see it harmed either. Oh, poor thing.
Just wait till you see what I have to do to the fish if I catch one.
Eustace, willing to hang out with Hetty, not willing to put up with Hetty.
I squirmed in the dirt. I thought this was meant to be relaxing.
It is. Deeply.
Is this not cruel?
I don't think so.
But you're killing something. 2 things even.
Fish and worms. Are you concerned for their souls?
You know as well as I do they don't have souls.
Well then, time to relax.
Fishing minigame? Fishing minigame?
minigame.
Ah.
She threw the hook and line into the center of the stream.
Is there a reason we use worms as bait? Do fish commonly eat worms? Is that a thing?
I actually don't know. I assume it's at least a level of baseline effective, given how popular they are, or how widespread they are, and the fact that they've been continued to be used. I would imagine it has something to do with the way the worm moves or looks on the line. It strikes me as one of those things that maybe we didn't know why originally it worked, but over time people realized that that worked better than whatever the alternative was. And even without fully understanding why, we've just kind of adopted it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's wild. I've never questioned that until right now, and now it's the most important thing in the world for me to know the answer to.
2 hours from now, Vivian's gonna knock on my door and demand we go break into a tackle shop and hold the owner at gunpoint and get our answers.
I'm here to speak to the Dick and Dick Sporting Goods.
I've got questions for him.
Do they sell worms there?
I don't think they actually sell tackle at Dick's Sporting Goods. No. No, actually, I would be surprised if there weren't places around here you could buy tackle. It would be weird if there weren't. Just because of, how close we are to the lake. Regardless, she threw the hook and line into the center of the stream, then joined me on the ground.
You'll soon see. It isn't even about the fish, really.
That does not put me at ease.
Shh. You'll scare them away.
I held my tongue and tried to enjoy our surroundings instead. I leaned back on my hands and looked up into the tree canopy. The sky was a bright, white gray. It was surprisingly hard to look at for too long.
I'm glad Flora is well.
Yes, it was quite an ordeal.
What happened?
Well, I heard a loud noise in the middle of the night.
Didn't you just say to her you were a heavy sleeper? Not, like, a couple of paragraphs ago?
Yeah.
And when I went to investigate, I found that it was coming from my old cell. And there she was, sure enough, being chased. I had no reason to lie to Eustace at this point. Unlike the others, she had already correctly assessed what I was up to. After our explosive argument in the garden, the true story would be difficult for Eustace to argue against. I knew she could not have been the ghost. In a sense, she was the only person I could trust with these details. Eustace seemed to know this. Her expression was measured, and she stared at the hook bobbing in the stream rather than turn to speak to me directly.
And what was chasing her?
A monstrous creature. The same one that I saw wielding that burning blade. It was huge and full of fire. And it smelled of brimstone and sulfur. I know it couldn't have been you. Eustace rubbed her sleeve against her nose.
Brimstone is rather hard to get out of cloth.
Please don't joke.
So you were menaced by a devil of some sort. Yet, here you are. Don't you find that a little odd?
Well...
You must be strong. I hear demons are quite dangerous.
I think Flora and I were just lucky.
If this monster is real and wanted you dead, I think it would have killed you.
Perhaps it didn't want to kill us?
Perhaps it wanted to possess you.
I tensed up. My fingers dug into the dirt involuntarily. That did not happen.
That's what someone possessed by a demon would say.
She slowly turned her head back toward me, her expression solemn. As her eyes locked, I felt panic flushing through me. I needed her to believe that I had seen what I had seen, but not like this.
I needed her to believe that I had seen what I had... There's a lot of Hedwig needing people to believe things.
Only joking.
Oh.
So you saw a giant thing chasing Flora. Her leg gets caught in the door, and it just lets both of you go. Is that right?
Yes, and I encountered it again in the back courtyard.
Huh. And you escaped it again? You are lucky.
It wasn't so much an escape. It just stood there.
And then I turned around and ran. I'm erring toward not believing a word of this again, just so you know. It is the truth. Flora will tell you the very same. Only don't ask her, I'm sworn to secrecy. I'm not sure how good her word is either, truth be told.
She sighed and looked out at the fishing lure bobbing in the water once more.
It would just be simpler if you would admit you were horseplaying on the wall and she fell, or something of the sort.
Well, that wouldn't be true.
Forgive me, but it is all a bit difficult to swallow.
How do you think I feel?
I think it's easier for you to believe than it is for me.
Of course it is. I saw it.
That's not what I mean. Never mind.
I appreciate Hedwig's predicament here of, have you ever been in that situation where someone demands to know the truth from you and what you are telling them is already the truth? It's what they actually want is to be told what they think is the truth, which would in fact be a lie.
Yeah. And you're like, I don't, it's like,
I hate that. I don't know how to explain to you that I am telling you the truth. I could tell you the thing you want to hear, but it wouldn't be the truth.
right,
That's not what's in question here.
Never mind.
No. Go on.
You spent your whole life up until now in a little cell, reading books filled with demons, miracles, etc.
That makes me more reliable, surely. I thought back to when the Superior dragged me out of my cell. I was a pair of fresh eyes on the mystery of Catherine with a C's death. I have as untainted a view of the world as anyone could have. Surely what I describe is unburdened with worldly context and what-ifs is possible.
Do you really believe that? Do you honestly think that your eyes see a clearer truth than mine? Your cell didn't keep you in some fresh, undriven state. In fact, you have more of a bias than any of us. Tenfold, easily.
I read nothing but scripture and commentaries.
I know. And I'm telling you that the scripture and commentary bouncing around in your mind doesn't all add up to 0. They aren't some sort of universal default. Your mind is as full as any of ours, if not more so.
Now you're being mean-spirited.
No, I am not. Give yourself some credit. Do you have the mind and will of a newborn baby?
No.
No. You are an intelligent 20-odd-year-old woman. That intelligence might come from a very narrow pool of experience, but it was experience all the same.
I suppose I understand.
Good.
So suddenly I'm like, okay, this is Mary's room. We're doing philosophy here, except it's not Mary's room. It's the
Hetty's
Virgin
cell.
Mary, the Virgin Mary's room.
the Virgin Mary's room. Do people, if we just say Mary's room, will people know what that is?
Absolutely not. Nobody
Okay.
will know what the fuck we're talking about unless they
Mary's
also
room.
do philosophy.
Real quick, Vivian is referencing Mary's room, which is the thought experiment, which is
From Nagel, Thomas Nagel.
Nagel. Thank you. Which is, say you put someone in a cell who just everything they see is in black and white, right? And what you do is you give them every single bit of literature they could ever want about all of the technical, physical aspects, emotional aspect, everything.
It's not from Nagel, it's from Frank Jackson. I lied.
Frank Jackson, you liar. Anything they could want to know about the color red, except for being able to see the color itself, right? So they have access to the totality of everything people have ever written about the color red, what it means scientifically and what it experientially and emotionally. And then you let them out of that cell and show them the color red. In that moment, assuming that they know everything there is to know about the color red aside from seeing it, have they learned anything new? That's the thought experiment behind Mary's room.
Yeah. What do you think? Take that down in your copybooks, class.
Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here because it's been a long time, but I think the thrust of it is that there is the argument is that there is something about the experience of seeing it or experiencing it for the first time, the qualia of it, right?
Yeah.
That cannot be otherwise known. You can't just learn qualia. You have to qualia the qualia.
That at least is Frank Jackson's argument. What he's using this thought experiment towards. You will find other folks who disagree.
Right, because the thrust of the argument is to create as convincing a the thrust of the argument is that there is indeed something new Mary would learn because it's designed from the standpoint of someone who wants to present as convincing as possible a case that there is something meaningful to the notion of qualia, right? Anyway, that was a whole bunch of talking about explaining just a small thing you referenced.
Yeah.
I guess you learned a thing today.
Congrats.
Your
mind is now poisoned by analytic philosophy. Enjoy.
I'm sorry about that.
There was a brief pause as Eustace adjusted how she was sitting and squinted into the water, checking the lure for activity. 30-odd-year-old woman, I think.
Being cooped up all that time sure was good for your skin.
She lurched forward suddenly as the string attached to the pole went taut. I touched my forehead in confusion. My skin felt as pallid and greasy as it always did. Another attempt of Eustace's to befuddle me, I reasoned. Eustace pulled the line in hand over hand and eventually dragged a small fish onto the shore.
Well, there we are.
She held it up by the tail and removed the hook in its mouth. Then, without warning, she smacked it against the rim of the bucket, hard. What was that for?
You either have to kill him or throw him back. This one looks tasty, so I killed it.
Such violence! Eustace sighed and dropped the dead fish into the bucket.
I have to admit, I did not foresee fishing being such an obstacle for you.
Eustace was like, I really was genuinely looking for a neutral ground to chat with you for a bit. I did not anticipate this part of it.
But perhaps that's my fault. There are a lot of things most people don't think about that you're seeing for the first time. Stairs, chessboards.
Greeting customs.
Huh?
Nothing.
Have it your way. But answer me this. What are you gonna do now?
And also the undersaid point there is like, yeah, there's a whole lot of things that you see differently from the rest of us. Hedwig. Object lesson. Hedwig.
About what?
Don't play dumb. About your Inquisition.
Well, I pondered for a moment. I believe I must keep sticking my nose in things. I'm sorry.
I cannot pretend I'm happy to hear that.
Wasn't she just ready to tell the soup the other day that it was a demon and therefore the Inquisition could end?
Yep.
God damn it, Hetty.
But I understand. I'd probably feel the same in your position now. All I can do is ask you now to reconsider. To stop.
Why?
Because you will get hurt well before you find any answers. And you will put us all in danger. This isn't just about you or me. This is about everyone here. You saw what happened to Flora.
So you don't believe that I saw a ghost, but
You insist that I stop? You speak as if you know what it all means. Must I have stuck my hand into a rose bush to be wary of its thorns? I don't know what it is. I barely even believe you're sure what you saw. But I know that whatever it is, it's no good. There must be some connection to...
Connection.
There must be some connection to Catherine with a C, though. You keep on mentioning danger waiting for you if I keep following the Superior's orders. And if this is the danger, they must be related. You know something, clearly, so... Maybe it is Catherine. With a C, as you're so fond of saying. What? Makes as much sense as it makes about as much sense as it existing at all, doesn't it? Say I believe you, wholeheartedly, that what you saw is real, and that you and Flora were chased by a vengeful demon. Is it such a large leap to wonder if it is Catherine with a C? Or is it related to her in some way? Yes, why would it be? I cannot entertain such a dark thought. What possible evidence would there be that could connect the two? What evidence do you have that it happened at all? Anyway, Flora and Catherine with a C. There is some history there.
Yeah, and what we know about their history, right, was that Catherine supposedly was responsible for locking Flora in a trunk that one time.
Yep.
Right. And what we had guessed was that maybe Flora asked Catherine for help trying to escape. It didn't go quite right, so Catherine covered and said, "Oh, it was a prank."
Yep.
Because it didn't seem like there was bad blood between the two beyond maybe, the expected.
Yep.
Right.
Unpleasant history. I went cold as I recalled the story I had heard about Flora being locked inside a trunk by Catherine with a C.
Do I need to keep doing the with a C and K thing? Yeah, because for the people that are listening, I got you. I
could
know
also
you
do
people.
1 and 2.
Eh. One of the hazing pranks spoken about in irritated whispers by the Superior had been my assumption. I was vaguely aware of that, actually. So there you go. I'm not saying that is what it is, of course. But, it is something to think about. What would we do if that were true? What difference would it make if I did or didn't keep my promise to the Superior to investigate what happened to Catherine with a C? When you first saw the beast, what were you doing? I was on the landing. Doing what? Looking for Flora? As part of my investigation into Catherine with a C's death, I suppose. I was worried her disappearance was connected. So, in this scenario, if we pretend monsters are real, it seems logical to assume that you are being warned away from something by the ghost. And what was Flora doing? I don't know. She had been in my old cell. That is very interesting. Follow that thought.
That is very interesting.
I think what we had thought at the time was maybe she was still trying to gather what she could, like maybe her misguided thought to gather gold paint or whatever, right? Either that or there was perhaps there's something else in the hallway that Hetty's cell was in, right? Because I don't think she saw. I think Hedwig is I think she might be eliding something here. If I recall correctly, what she said, what was relayed to us in the last chapter wasn't that she saw Flora rush out of her cell. She saw Flora rush out from the hall, like down the hallway, coming at her from the hallway where her cell was located. So her saying that Flora had been in her cell is an extrapolation on her part. I guess the question would be, like, where else would she have been? But
I mean, we know what else is in that hallway, right?
the hidden door that Margaret pointed out, right?
Yeah, with the creepy sigil.
Yep, with the creepy sigil. So maybe Flora was in the walls. Woo!
She suddenly yanked another fish out of the water. She continued speaking as she inspected the size.
Flora and Catherine with the Sea were very close for a while. Until they weren't.
Catherine, you lady killer.
Yeah, right?
There is a connection there. If you want to investigate something, look into that.
And then what?
And then stop, God willing.
And then what? Just wait to die, or worse, when this beast strikes again.
I have a theory about that.
A theory?
A game theory. Sorry, that won't be funny for another, 600 plus years.
It seemed preposterous to me to ascribe any sort of logic to devilry. I was too curious to object. A dark sense of suspicion, perhaps not of Eustace herself, but of what she knew, began to creep through me.
I can't help but wonder if it'll leave us alone if things just remain as they are.
That seems like a tall order when someone might have been murdered.
I know. But consider that there had never been so much as a whisper of hauntings until Catherine with the Sea passed.
That isn't true, is it? Darcy makes it sound like this place has always been a little odd, for one.
I mean Darcy, no disrespect, but you cannot always take her at her word. Anyway, Catherine with the Sea is gone, and you keep seeing this monster. And now Flora has as well, if I entertain your story. I suspect she might have been poking around after Catherine with the Sea's death as well, which is why it attacked her and you both.
You really think it could be her? I honestly think I should feel offended at the very idea. Eustace shrugged.
Perhaps it's her. Perhaps it's simply related to her passing. I'm not too concerned with the actual mechanics of it, to be perfectly honest. I would prefer to stay well away. I've just observed a pattern, and that's enough for me to not want to go chasing threads related to Catherine with the Sea's death.
This kind of matches with how she was approaching Hedwig before, right? Where she is presenting herself as an outsider of it, but someone who also has decided that it is much better to not be involved and to not poke this than to be involved with it. And I'm not going to say for sure that she's being forthright about all that, but that certainly fits.
Yep.
That certainly matches everything we've seen Eustace do so far. So, more thinking on.
It should be enough for you as well. Like I told you before, I am looking out for you, you know. I am looking out for all of us.
I stared into the ripples of the stream, considering Eustace's words. It was, infuriatingly, rather sound reasoning. Nobody seemed to recognize the ghost I had described on that first night I witnessed it. They concluded it was a prank immediately. Nobody claimed to recognize the creature. And then when Eustace had dressed up as that same beast to scare me, had it been based on my description, and it had genuinely terrified everybody else in the room. I recounted the times I had seen the terrible apparition. So Eustace's thrust is that what she wants Hedwig to believe is that Hedwig poking her nose in things is
is the cause of this demon appearing?
Well,
Or-
I would temper that with, if we are to entertain at all that Hedwig has given an accurate account of events,
Right, which
we should think that.
Right. Because again, we're basing this on Eustace's premises here, right? Which is like she's entertaining Hedwig's ideas for now.
Yep.
Interesting.
I recounted the times I had seen the terrible apparition. Outside my window after the Superior had told me her plan for me. In the hall when I had been snooping outside the Misericorde.
Did we get that full illustration last time?
We did.
Okay,
It was
I
very,
forgot it.
Yeah, it's very good.
On the landing above me when I was observing the sword in the cloister. Looming above me in the garden when I had been looking for Flora. And then finally, of course, the attack when I had finally found her. These, indeed, were all connected to my search for the truth about Catherine with a C. There was one small detail nagging at me, however. When we were traveling back up the mountain from the village, you seemed to hold visions, apparitions, and so on in very low regard. What has changed?
A moderately convincing eyewitness account. Isn't this what you've wanted? For me to change my mind? Goodness, Hedwig. Learn to accept victories when you've earned them.
Well, that is heartening.
I propose a deal. Stay out of it. Stay out of it, truly, for 1 week. If nothing happens, I win. We accept that Catherine with Disease's death was a tragedy that affected us all deeply, and we move on. If something does happen, I will leave you be, and we can chase whatever this ghost is together. Does that sound fair?
I was beginning to lose track of the amount of pacts I had entered. I felt a deep unease, but I just couldn't imagine refusing Eustace in this instance. Especially, a dark voice inside of my head whispered, when we were alone in the woods. That sense of suspicion had not been abated by this proposal, and I started to wonder just how much Eustace knew that she was not telling me. A raindrop fell on her hand just as she extended it out to touch my shoulder.
Remember, I am trying to help you, and I will, no matter which way things break.
Very well, then. My stomach churned. I had no intention of honoring such an idea. Perhaps I should have.
Ooh, love thyself. Although the font makes it look like lobe thyself. Up till now we've been doing a chapter or so, but we're less than an hour in, so we're gonna keep going.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll make it to another chapter break, but we'll go till the sode feels done.
The walk back to the Abbey was far less peaceful. The sounds of the forest had not changed, but the turmoil inside me was far louder than any wind, bird, or crackling twig.
Now playing. Oh dear. Sorry, I keep checking the music track names. I just gotta know.
When I was very young, I watched a rowboat tip over when one too many people scrambled to fit inside it. It's one of the strongest memories from before I became an anchoress.
What was that memory attached to? Why would people be scrambling to get in a rowboat with too many people in it?
Hedwig was on the Titanic.
Okay, so my brain genuinely went somewhere like that. Not literally the Titanic, but, you know, because that's way too anachronistic, but like, I don't know.
And the 1980s aren't.
Huh?
And the 1980s aren't, though.
Okay, moving on. But like, I don't know. Is there a situation where like, I know like you might have like, would there be an instance where she would be on a capsizing ship? Like maybe if she was on her way to England? Or is it unrelated? There's a lot. I just don't want to let that detail go by unremarked. Let's leave it at that for now. I don't have anything else solid to go on, but I want to put a little hat on it.
It is one of the strongest memories from before I became an anchoress.
I put a little hat on it.
Perhaps my only complete memory from that time period.
Vivian, just so you know, Vivian has now put a shark on top of her head.
I felt like that rowboat now. I was not built to hold this much weight or movement. I grimaced to myself as I recalled all of the secrets, pacts, and threats I held. The Superior's demands, Flora's plea for secrecy, Catherine with a K's whorish behavior, Angela's assumed pact, Eustace's ability to look right through me, and the lie I had just told to make her happy. And above all else, my broken oath. My promise to God, now in tatters for weeks. Not only was I no longer an anchoress in his service, I barely made time for him at all. I did not recite all of the hours. I no longer prayed as I once did. I no longer labored over scripture. I could feel my knowledge of the words slipping away, letter by letter. There was a point in my life where I could recall most any passage from memory. And now, I was beginning to worry that my grasp on scripture was about to be pushed out of my mind to make room for all of these sins. There was no room left in my little rowboat. Neither Eustace nor I spoke until we were back inside the walls of the cloister, when I reached over to grab a cool, refreshing sip of Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper, the preferred soda of nunneries everywhere circa 1480.
Now available in Blackberry.
Hey, Dr. Pepper, reach out to us. I will drink one of your sodas every episode if you pay me to.
I won't.
Like one of the tiny mini cans.
I still won't.
No, that's fine. That's fine. One of these days we're gonna get sponsored by something I'm already drinking or doing. That's the dream, right?
Is it?
I don't know. I feel like I would get paid and then don't have to change anything that I'm doing.
Thanks for coming. I hope the fishing experience wasn't too traumatic for you.
It was certainly full of surprises.
I suspect you won't be so conflicted when it comes time to eat these. I can fry them up later if you like.
Supper is already planned, surely.
If you've never had a midnight snack, I'll come collect you later when it's time.
That sounds lovely. I wasn't completely sure what was so exciting about eating fish on a different day than was usual, but I was more occupied by Eustace's sudden friendliness. Yeah, I mean, I think she's holding stuff back still, for sure, but I don't see a reason yet to doubt her offer as genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's kind of where I'm on it at the moment. It felt fairly obvious to me that Eustace wanted to keep an eye on me after my promise. I couldn't go snooping around the Abbey late at night if I was busy supping with her. Clever. I was about to turn and leave when she spoke up once more.
Darcy went back to the dorms probably, yeah?
I must assume so. I last saw her with Margaret in the cellars, but she was rather worn out after drinking that tincture.
All right, thank you.
After what?
Drinkture.
I understand now. Thank you.
Someday someone in our comment section is going to get tired of that. It's not today.
I'm sure people are already tired of it. I don't care. I'm not tired
I mean, we're
of
not
it.
going to stop. It's just, I just feel like I should point that out.
Fish tonight. Don't forget.
I won't.
I need somewhere to hang out because Darcy's going to sleep in my bed, and it's a little awkward because we're on the rocks right now.
She nodded and scurried off toward the cloister. I'm not proud to admit that my immediate thought after she'd left was to break my promise to her. But I felt that it was an unreasonable promise to demand of me. And that moment seemed like the perfect time to investigate what, exactly, Flora had been doing in my cell.
Wow, new record for breaking promises.
I walked to the stairs slowly, making sure that Eustace was far enough ahead to miss me following close behind her. After climbing the stairs, I scampered across the landing, relieved to see that nobody else was between me and the crossing where I had first seen the ghastly demon. I slowed a little. The same crossing where it had chased Flora and I. To my left, the door that crushed her leg. I turned to the right and walked forward a bit until I came to the corner, facing right again to stare into the darkness of the old hallway. My cell at the end, beckoning through the ink. Eustace's theory rang inside my head like a bell. I stepped forward. It was dark in here, but it was broad daylight outside. If Eustace could find confidence in spurious connections, so could I. No devil would chase me into the sunlight. I felt very brave for the first few steps, but halfway through the corridor I began to second-guess myself. Still, I pushed ahead. I had to know. What had Flora seen? I could simply ask her, but after talking to Eustace, I was beginning to suspect Flora might not be completely forthcoming. I arrived at the door to my cell, heart beating out of my chest. I was shaking now, still full of courage, but for how much longer I could stand being here alone was anyone's guess.
Couple dozen years? For the last record?
I hastily reached out to open the door, only to discover... Oh, hell! I swore under my breath, and then felt ashamed. The door was locked. I tried the handle again, but it did not bulge. That was very odd indeed. How had Flora gotten in then? I backed away from the door for a moment to consider. The darkness made me shiver. Had someone come to lock it after the fact? Is she just... I should really double check my thought here because she's spending a lot of time on something that I thought for sure wasn't actually the case. So I should go back and double check that scene, but
Yeah.
I still feel pretty certain that this doesn't matter because Flora could have been not in her room but still down this hallway.
And that seemed the most plausible explanation, only I could not imagine any reason why. I would need to ask the Superior for the key if I were to investigate this any further.
I mean, even if Flora wasn't in the cell, it's still interesting that it's locked now. It wasn't the last time we were here.
Because the last time was when the soup came in with her, and the soup realized it. I think we read the soup as realizing it wasn't locked at that point, right?
Yeah. Was there another time? Did she have to go to the cell to collect paints?
Yeah, it was to do drawing time with Flora.
Did she need keys then?
The soup came with her, yes.
Okay.
And I think when that happened, we think that the soup maybe had discovered it wasn't locked.
But it wasn't stated as text. That was our assumption from the surprise.
Yes, that was an assumption that we made based on the soup's reactions in that moment.
Okay.
But presumably when they left, she would have just locked it at that point. You know, she brought the keys. She assumed it was locked in the first place. So, it's not a stretch to imagine she would have locked it on the way out.
I exhaled, then briskly walked back toward the light in the landing. As I emerged from the bend along the hall to the dorms came into view, I slowed to a more normal pace. Nobody was there, thank goodness. I jogged lightly to the stairs and took them down faster than ever before, nearly tripping as I turned on the landing to see.
Sister Hedwig, where are you in such a hurry?
I was actually on my way to see the Superior.
I would not suggest doing so at this time. I was just at her door and received a strong telling off.
Oh dear.
I think she is busy, or perhaps she is brooding. I think this Flora incident upset her a great deal.
It was very upsetting, although she did seem relieved last night. Jubilee and so on.
That is true. But I would not be surprised if she changed her mind or found something else to be upset about.
Does that happen often? Adela threw her head back and let out a sharp cackle.
Nah ha 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 ha. I'm not good at cackles.
That's fair.
Aside from you, I am the newest oblate here, and even I have seen this many times. Our superior is very gracious until she is not.
That is good to know.
How are you making the most of your day off?
Oh, this and that. I actually just went fishing with Eustace.
Really? Wow. I have been wanting her to take me for ages.
Is that so?
Do not worry, I am not jealous. I think that when last I asked her, she was busy courting Darcy.
Courting?
Forgive me for making salacious jokes. You understand what I mean, though?
Oh, of course. I had no idea what she was talking about.
I think that means like she was just trying to be more friendly and open up to a friendship. It is what the thrust of Adela's joke was.
Yep.
Right? Who knows whether or not Adela actually knows what those two are up to. Maybe there's nothing more salacious to it than just Darcy likes hugs.
Yeah?
Could just be it needs the touch and the smooches. There's nothing wrong with smooches. Smooches, in fact, when consensual, are good. They help your immune system. Well, I think it was it Iffy Nwadiwe's presentation on a recent episode of
Smarty Pants?
Yeah, Smarty Pants. I think it was his that was why we should be kissing the bros more often.
Yep.
I had no idea what she was talking about.
Did she win?
When?
It appears I am speaking out of turn. I just assumed that was what you meant by fishing. What?
What do you mean? What? Margaret's coming up.
No. What was Adela's whole thing? Did
I think
she
she
win?
thinks most things are competitions.
Oh, okay.
What I had taken it to mean was that most things are competitions, and it's...
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I could be reading it wrong, but that when I heard that is what I read it as.
Oh, Hedwig went on a fishing trip with Eustace.
Adela jolted as Margaret emerged behind her.
I had my money on Moira until earlier, but then I assumed Darcy had won.
Won? Okay, now I am confused.
Had everyone decided to start speaking a different language while I was visiting my old cell?
Are Eustace's activities at the fishing spot generally different than fishing?
Well, I think Adela's about to explain it for us.
Let us avoid being rude. Hedwig is clearly confused. Not that confused, I imagine.
She offered me a wink, but I was still baffled. Utterly confused, I'm afraid. Margaret's cheeky grin faded a little and Adela tugged her sleeve.
We should go. We were off to enjoy some chess in the library. Yes, that's right. You could join us later on, Sister Hedwig. They absolutely share a subtext about this that we do not.
Yeah, I don't fucking know. I feel like there's because Margaret's winking, I think it's got to be something about them getting together. But the way in which they are talking about having won makes it very confusing what exactly they mean.
Yep.
Right? I think you're right that something salacious was implied to have happened. At least by Adela, or meant to have happened. But we don't quite understand what that means. Darcy had won. I guess they assumed that Eustace was getting together with Darcy, maybe. I'm just going to assume that the subtext is lesbians.
Yeah. Did the menu always have the animated rosary, or is that new in Chapter 2?
I think it's new in Chapter 2 because I noticed it when we started Chapter 2, but it has been long enough since we played Chapter 1 that I could absolutely be wrong. Anyway, did you read this one?
Yeah. Give us a moment or two, though, obviously. She was on her way to talk to the Superior. Oh, good. I hope you aren't in trouble or anything like that.
No, not that I'm aware of.
None of us are in any sort of trouble. We are all upstanding daughters of the Lord.
Adela, bless your heart. Both of them started snickering as they carried on up the stairs without me.
Is Linbarrow just where they send the homos?
So during our discussion episode, we talked about Linbarrow kind of being the place where people end up.
Yep.
Right? And I wonder if this is that's one of the things that causes you to end up at Linbarrow. Right? This isn't a place people choose to go to continue their service to the Lord. This is a place where people are sent to continue their service to the Lord. What on earth was that all about? I'd been left thoroughly baffled by their behavior. A pair of giggling children, that's what they seemed to me, speaking in some bizarre, made-up language designed to annoy me. I felt positively steamed by the time I made it to the Superior's door. Who did those girls think they were? I knocked with some trepidation, hoping I wouldn't end up on the receiving end of the Superior's bad mood. The knock remained unanswered just long enough for me to raise my hand to knock once again. However, as soon as I did, I heard the faintest rumble of movement through the thick wooden door.
Who calls?
Sister Hedwig!
Once again? Come in, then.
How is your sleeping off your head, your hangover? The Superior was still in her nightclothes and looked even more haggard. The lines of her face looked deeper than usual, and there were dark circles under her eyes that reminded me of Darcy's puffy lids. It was stuffier than usual in her office, and it smelled rather stale. Superior, are you hotboxing in here? I took a seat in front of the grand desk while she tottered over to the window to open it a crack before sitting down to address me.
What is it you need, Hedwig?
I just need the key to my old cell. I think there might be a clue in there as to what happened with Sister Flora.
The cell, but...
She looked confused, as if searching for words. I wondered if this is what it felt like for others to talk to me.
I apologize, I'm still not fully awake. What was it you needed again?
I tried the cell door not long ago and it was locked. If I could just have the key, I might be able to piece together what happened with Sister Flora. And determine if it had anything to do with Catherine with a C.
I see. The cell key. Yes?
She pulled open a drawer and fumbled for a moment before producing a large key ring. It jingled as she fiddled with the mechanism to remove the key I needed. The sound sent a shiver up my back. She tossed the key toward me, laying it on the desk with a clatter, and I could see the Superior wince with regret. Thank you.
What do you think you're going to find?
I'm not sure, but I know she was there before I found her. She came running out of that hall when...
When you saw a ghost.
Even in her addled state, she was able to lace those words in venom.
So, you're still unwilling to tell the truth?
I am being as truthful as can be. I can only tell you what I saw, however ridiculous it might seem.
If you can't be honest with me, at least be honest with yourself. You realize how ridiculous this story is, surely?
It really does sound absurd. But I can only describe what I saw with my own eyes.
I've been thinking about that. You're a clever girl, but you are new to the world in your own way. Must you take your eyes at their word, or, their vision? You understand my meaning?
What else could it have been? I think we also, mentioned this during our discussion episode where what it means for Hedwig to be seeing demons and stuff like this. And some of it might just be her trying to interpret something that she in her cell has no other context for. Right? When she says demon, and when the artwork shows us demon, that may not, it might be Hedwig's, it might be an interpretation of what Hedwig had seen but had no other word to describe. I'm just pitching stuff. The Superior opened a lower drawer and produced the same wine bottle she had offered me a drink from in one of our previous meetings. She set about sloppily pouring 2 glasses.
I don't know.
Okay, so that is what she's doing today.
It was rather dark, I imagine. A dog?
It would have had to be a rather enormous dog. And that wouldn't explain the haze.
Haze.
That's some very good wine, Superior. With 23 original flavors. Or a blend of 23 flavors, I'm sorry. Please don't take away my sponsorship. It was engulfed in smoke. It was rather pungent, too. It was horrible.
Perhaps a bear, then.
Why on earth would there be a bear here?
Shh. Not so loud.
Sorry.
Anyway, you never know with bears.
Always keep a knife on you in case you can counter one, right?
Exactly. You don't see them often, of course, but perhaps one wandered out of a royal menagerie.
I was thrown back to the conversation in the Misericorde, where Angela's fear of bears had been thoroughly mocked. That really does not seem plausible.
More plausible than a spirit.
Ah,
Bears are real, at the very least.
I can offer no argument there, I suppose.
Thank goodness.
But
Hedwig?
I can say that there's no satisfactory explanation to the contrary. The Superior drummed her fingers on her desk and exhaled sharply through her nose.
Well, you have your key. Go and find whatever it is you hope to find.
I think I might have preferred a tirade to the wounded tone she spoke in. My intent had not been to defeat her, but the crack in her voice made me feel like I had her at the end of a blade. I spun the key in between my fingers, searching for something to say that would redeem me. You know, I spoke to Eustace about some of this, and she does seem rather suspicious.
Oh?
I almost told her about Eustace's demand that I leave things be. Before I did, however, I realized that the telling of Superior that I had already been compromised was a bad idea. Yes.
Well, follow up on that as well when you can.
Of course. Thank you, Your Reverence. She waved a hand at me and I left with haste.
She poured 2 glasses. Was she planning to offer some to Hetty? I guess.
I hurried back through the cloister to the stairs so I could return to my old cell once more. As I reached the 2nd floor, I froze for a moment. I could hear Eustace's voice coming from the dormitory hall. It would be terrible if she caught me breaking my promise to her not an hour after making it. I held down for a moment, trying to determine if she was bogged down in a long enough conversation for me to slip past undetected.
Tonight, does that sound fun?
It does sound fun.
I can't help but detect some sarcasm.
No sarcasm. You always detect sarcasm when you are worried.
No, that isn't true. You sound a little upset.
No, I don't.
Very well. I will take your word for it.
It does sound fun. I would like to do it.
That's great. Are you sure you're feeling all right?
Yes.
You're sure?
Yes. Why wouldn't I be?
Because
It really is not a problem. Not as big of a problem as you seem to be worried about anyway.
But it is a problem.
I like this because Eustace is clearly the kind of person who was used to being like, no, there's subtext and things to this that are supposed to be happening, and Darcy's like, no, I just say what I mean.
But it is a problem.
A little bit of a problem, but not that big of a problem.
This seemed to be going nowhere, so I slipped past and jogged lightly back toward my old cell.
Is she gonna get back and it's unlocked? That'd be fun.
That would be fun, but
the timing would have to be so tight and specific on that I don't know what to make of it.
this time I approached the impossible darkness at full speed. I braced myself as it surrounded me. I hadn't thought to bring a candle with me. I was only looking for a door after all, and there was a window in the cell. I could just make out the outline of the door frame and look when I approached it. I produced the key and fumbled for the keyhole. The shaft slid in with a satisfying clunk. It took more force than I had anticipated to twist the mechanism open. It took me a couple of turns, but I was soon inside. My old cell. Place stay home safe, place stay home safe. Weird that it's giving the anxiety spread of words when they're all like, this is the safe place, right?
Yeah.
I had come back here once before not long ago. But I had been accompanied by the Superior then. And while it had been emotionally overwhelming, it was nothing compared to what I felt now. I was standing alone where I had meant to stand alone for my whole life. What had I been looking for again? I shut the door behind me. It was pitch black in here, but I scarcely needed to see. So familiar a space this was. I felt strangely invigorated. I paced across the room to open my cell window. And light cascaded across the floor. Oh, how I had missed this place. What had I been looking for again? I sat on the edge of my old bed and stared at the patterns in the stone beneath me. Some strange feeling was running up and down my body, all across my skin. I could feel everything in vivid detail. Threads of the bed covering on which I sat, crumbs between my fingers, air moving in and out of my nose and over my lips as I breathed. Fabric against my skin. My left leg began to bounce up and down out of sheer nervous energy. The patterns in the floor were so inviting. What had I been looking for again? I was restless. I left the bed and fell to my knees on the floor, spreading my hands across the cool flagstone. It felt good. I laid down and pressed my cheek against the stone. That, too, felt good, but it was not enough. What had I been looking for again? Hastily, I stood up and practically yanked my robe off over my head. I stripped bare, kicking off my leggings and underclothes and tossing everything into an unkempt ball in the corner of the room. I laid down again, and this time I felt satisfied. The cold gray stone felt so right against my skin. I could feel my whole shape, if that makes any sense in the slightest. The tingling sensation where body met stone created a map of myself in my mind. There was my shoulder. There was my knee. There was each side of my face as I rolled it back and forth across the floor. There were my fingertips as they slid across the tiles. There was my mound, unceremoniously caught on a slightly raised piece of stone, hairs brushing against. What had I been looking for again? Then, I heard something. I had never moved so quickly in my whole life. Not even on the night where I had sprinted between the hospitalum and the abbey had I moved with such swiftness. It was a miracle I had heard anything at all. It was just in time, one light footstep approaching the heavy door, echoing just enough to warn me. I scooped up my discarded clothes and launched myself under my old bed in one undignified motion. My elbow caught against it as I slid beneath. Thank God the sound was masked by the door creaking. I resisted my need to yelp in pain, biting my lower lip so hard I could taste blood. Someone entered the cell.
Interesting. This is interesting.
Yeah. Cell does seem to matter.
I could see the hem of their robe and their shoes, but little else. It could be Eustace because Hedwig is not doing as good of a job of sneaking past as she thought.
Yep.
The strange thing is, if we believe Hetty, it was locked, right?
Yeah.
So who came... It would be strange if someone came here expecting to find it unlocked.
Maybe someone came here expecting to find it locked.
Yeah, that would be that would have to be the case, right? Unless the last time they had been here had been since before they got paints to do stuff with Flora.
I had pressed myself as far back against the wall as I possibly could.
Wait, I know
Yeah?
what it is. Calling it now. Darcy playing hide and seek.
I was lucky that the only things I used to store under here were the bedpan and brush. My heart stopped as I remembered the open window. Thankfully, when the intruder noticed, she simply sighed irritably and made to close it. A moment later, I heard a thump on the bed above me. Was she sitting? No. More footsteps. The door closed, and that was that.
Oh no! Hedwig's cell is the fuck room? Oh, I thought a second pair of footsteps entered. My bad.
I was gonna say that'd be surprising. That doesn't seem plausible.
No, it doesn't. I thought that was meant to be another pair of footsteps entered. But who on earth is in her room?
I remained huddled under the bed for a few minutes, breathing heavily. That had been one of my closest brushes with discovery yet, and I could scarcely bear to think about it. Not only would I have been exposed as a snoop and a spy, I would have been cast as some sort of pervert. What had I been doing? What had I been looking for again? I pondered these embarrassing questions as I gingerly pulled myself out from underneath the bed, certain now the intruder had left.
So someone came in and dumped something on the bed and then left.
That's what Hedwig thinks, at least.
Okay.
I scanned the dark room once more, clearer-headed than I had been when I entered. The shelves were all the same as I had left them. The desk was as I had left it as well. If my mysterious visitor hadn't entered to deposit something on the bed, this would have been an utterly fruitless endeavor. There was nothing in here that stood out as obvious reason for Flora to have hidden here. I furrowed my brow. It's hard to believe this was worth breaking my promise to Eustace. I turned to the bed, hoping that whatever had been dropped on the mattress by the intruder would make some sort of sense. It was a book, just like one of the ones I would have used in transcription. I picked it up and rifled through the pages, hoping to find something that had made this transgression worthwhile. Empty. Completely and totally empty. I sighed, beginning to grow tired of being bombarded with new questions and mysteries.
Is someone using her old cell to write?
I don't know.
I was amassing quite a collection of mysterious books. I walked over to the window to crack it open once again, hoping that sunlight would reveal something on the pages. Perhaps messages scratched into the pages without ink, or...
Hedwig? Is that you?
All blood drained out of my face. A tiny figure was waving at me cheerfully from down below the window.
Hello, Hedwig. I can see your tits.
I panicked and moved away from the window. I scrambled under the bed to recover my clothes and pulled them on as fast as I could. Perhaps if I moved quickly enough, I could convince Catherine with a K she hadn't seen anything at all. It had been a trick of the light. I had been in my room, my dorm room, this whole time. I finished dressing myself and grabbed the book from the bed. I scurried out of my cell and shut the door, my hands trembling.
Did you lock it this time? You forgot to lock it, huh? Alright. To be fair, someone did come down there and expected to find it unlocked, so... yeah.
Or did they?
Or they had a key.
Yeah.
Then I sprinted at full speed down the hall toward the corner, hoping I could make it to the dormitory before Catherine with a K could catch me. I ran as fast as I could, but alas...
Hedwig, my dear.
Ah! She had been moving with haste, it seemed. She crested the top of the stairs just ahead of me, a look of wicked triumph on her face.
Just the woman I was hoping to run into.
Hello, Catherine with a K.
I must say, you're looking a little more put together than when I last saw you.
At luncheon?
Ha! Oh, you are positively adorable when you're in trouble.
Why was someone out there all ready to look at the window?
I don't know.
Because it doesn't overlook a part of the Abbey that people go to,
Yeah.
right? What reason was Catherine for being there? Huh.
Isn't she, Margaret?
Oh, no.
Yes, so true, Catherine.
Margaret was not far behind Catherine, although it looked like running had taken more of a toll on her.
Are you winded, Margaret? Keep up, you're fitter than I am. No, I was busy. I'm not to be underestimated as long as I have time to prepare.
She joined her friend, attempting to match Catherine's smirk through heavy breaths.
I think the three of us are long overdue for a little chat. Wouldn't you agree, Hedwig? Just us girls. I've long considered the three of us a very tightly knit clique.
That makes 2 of us.
I couldn't agree more. Why don't you come with us?
Where?
The cellars are lovely at this time of day. The cellars are lovely at this time of day.
There was no wriggling out of this, whatever this was. That sounds like a grand idea.
Wonderful.
She put her arm around me and pulled me close, her fingers digging into my shoulder as she guided me down the stairs.
We have a lot to catch up on. Too true.
The mischievous pair practically dragged me through the cloister toward the cellar stairs.
Oh, we'll have so much fun, the three of us. Why do you look so worried, Hedwig?
Do I? I just always look worried. Another woman was emerging from the cellar stairs ahead of us. At first I was relieved. Perhaps she would intervene whatever scheme these two had for me. Alas.
What on earth are you three doing? Oh, just us girls having a little fun on our impromptu holiday.
Improliday.
Exactly. Is Hedwig well? She looks as if she's seen a ghost. Oh, Hedwig is having just a wonderful time.
Help me!
A little too much wine, perhaps.
Help me!
Nothing a little more wine won't fix.
Angela sneered.
You could be doing something far more productive with your time, all of you. So true, and yet, here we are, alas. Life can be so cruel. Indeed it can. Thank God for good drink. And good company. Incidentally, would you fuck off away, Angela? Thank you ever so much.
Angela rolled her eyes and strolled the other direction toward the Superior's office. Catherine with the case squeezed my shoulder and continued to steer me as we made our way into whatever meeting place in the cellars my kidnappers had in mind. And we'll have to figure out what they have in mind for her.
Next time?
Next time!
Oh.
Any guesses on what this meeting might be about?
I don't know.
I'm still trying to run through, like, how could this be a hilarious misunderstanding, right? Because it almost assuredly is.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how just yet. Maybe Margaret thinks Hetty is gay? And Hetty, well and truly, that was well and truly a mistake, but still. Well, we'll see you all next time, everyone. Bye.
Peace.
Smash that like, comment and subscribe.